Hey guys, I'm past the Frieza saga in Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, and I think I can confidently say that the combat system in this game is an absolute mess. Now, I haven't really seen other people discuss the combat system in detail, so if that's what you're looking for, keep watching, because that will be the main focus for this video. I'll talk briefly at first on the overall gameplay of the game, just to keep things balanced and provide proper context, because maybe if the side quests and side activities were amazing, then having a subpar combat system would be understandable, but spoilers, they're not. So, here's a quick overview of the game. If you only care about the discussion of the combat, skip to the time that you see on the screen or follow the link in the video description, and please remember to subscribe and leave your comment if you enjoy the video. Okay, the world of Kakarot is divided into several different zones which play as a mini open world experience. There are side activities like fishing, collecting minerals and food, and picking up orbs, the latter of which will be necessary to level up your skills, while the several different items that you get from the other activities are either sold for money or used for crafting. You do need to engage with these activities in order to have enough money to buy healing items, but the time you need to invest isn't much. None of them are very engaging or cleverly designed, and some are just mind-numbingly basic, like just tapping the X button to shoot orbs in a bad first-person view until a meter goes down. That said, it's a nice world to play around in, and flying around and exploring is fairly entertaining. The graphics go a long way here, and the overall design of the world, the rivers, the towns, they look and feel precisely like Dragon Ball should. Unfortunately, I think the world would look a lot better without the orbs scattered all around, so while this is the most accurate representation of the world of Dragon Ball so far, it's also not the best. There are also side quests scattered across the map which generally require you to fetch something or fight, sometimes both, and these can be mildly entertaining depending on which characters are interacting. As you fly through the world, you will get into what are essentially random battles. I say essentially because you can see the enemies and steer away from them or fly fast to avoid them, but they will follow you if you get too close, and if you at any point stop for a couple of seconds, maybe to pick up an item or do something else, they will often catch up to you and you will have to fight. This can get old really quick, because most enemies pose no threat to you and are quickly dispatched by an optimal set of moves which you quickly learn to repeat to make the battle end as fast as possible, so you can keep doing whatever it is you were doing. There is also a community system, which is basically a menu where you can slot characters in to give different bonuses to resource gathering, your attack stats, experience gain, and stuff like that. The problem with this is that the way it's built encourages you to stack as many characters as you can to whatever activity it is that you're doing at that moment to get the most amount of bonuses. So if you're cooking, you put everyone in the cooking section. If you're fighting, everyone in the fighting section, and so on. It's unnecessary, and if you really want to make the most out of it, it breaks down to repeatedly moving icons across the screen. So it's not just unnecessary, but it's also badly designed. The storytelling and dialogues are mediocre. Most cutscenes feature stiff animation and oddly paced dialogue, so there's not much of an improvement here over the dozens of previous games that have covered the Dragon Ball Z arc. You occasionally get a cutscene that looks incredible, but most are just very plain. I consider myself a huge Dragon Ball fan, and I don't think any of this is good enough to merit buying this game. If I had to rate this part of the game, that is the game without the combat system, I would give it a 5 or 6 out of 10. So let's dive into the combat system, which could be its saving grace, but it isn't, because it's unrewarding, it's repetitive, it completely ignores what the Dragon Ball combat is all about, and it's poorly designed to the point of even interfering with itself and completely disregarding the player in some instances. To give you a brief overview, you have a basic combo that you can end in 3 different ways and a special attack that you can use by holding L1 and pressing a button. All of these require different amounts of energy and are essentially either a short combo or a beam attack. There are many problems with the way that the combat is structured, however, and I thought maybe as the game progressed and you got new skills, these problems would go away, but they don't. They actually become more and more evident and hard to ignore as you get stronger and gain new skills, because one of the problems is that nothing really changes when you get a new skill. Nothing changes when you get stronger, so there is only a progression in the sense that you have different variations of the same few options and gameplay choices that you already had at the start of the game. But there is one core issue that makes every single battle feel exactly the same. Be it an epic battle between Goku and Frieza, or a run-of-the-mill random encounter between Gohan and a couple of robots. The issue is called Hyper Armor, or the unbreakable, unstoppable enemy attacks. I've mentioned this briefly in my previous video. Every single enemy in the game, from the lowest little monster to the biggest badass, has attacks that can't be stopped no matter what. If you've ever wanted a game to be designed based entirely upon the dialogue in this scene, this is precisely what that is. These types of attacks are the bread and butter of the game. The ones that you can interrupt with your own attacks are far less frequent. And this isn't just restricted to the attack, but often also to the wind-up animation to it as well. So if the enemy charges energy and then does a powerful kick, none of that can be interrupted. If this was restricted to specific milestones during a fight, and there was a charging up phase that you could stop by performing a special attack combination of some sorts, then maybe it would at least be a risk-reward kind of situation, and there's even a glimpse of that during the fight with Vegeta. That is unfortunately not the case for the rest of the game. You get to interrupt his Gallic gun one time, but every single Gallic gun after that is unstoppable. Granted, you can still attack him while he does the attack, and he does take damage, but the attack keeps going regardless. This makes every enemy feel like he's some sort of Broly demigod, because even the lowest of foes will plow through a Kamehameha to the face and interrupt you with their charged up attack. So you see, only the enemy attacks are immune from interruption, not yours. So even the most powerful special attack that you have can be stopped by someone literally flying through it and punching you. They essentially took the joke attacks from Mr. Satan in the Budokai Tenkaichi games and structured a combat system around them. But that's not all. Some attacks don't even have a wound-up animation and instead go to a short cutscene, and then it cuts back to some perspective that showcases that attack. More often than not, this is reserved to being one of those where you have to fly around to avoid a sort of geometric attack pattern. If you're caught doing one of your attacks when this takes place, your attack gets deleted with no damage to the enemy, but with your energy having been spent regardless. So in the blink of an eye, the game is screwing you over twice. And if you're right next to the enemy, it means that you'll be taking the full attack to the face with very little chance to dodge or block it completely. Some of these attacks can also become unavoidable because of camera placement or terrain. So if you're caught up against a wall or facing the ground or the sky, the way the movement works in the game will make it completely impossible to evade the attack. But we're not done yet. You see, there is a stun system which is designed in a way that encourages you to play every fight in exactly the same way. Every enemy has a stun gauge, and some of your special attacks will deplete this bar more than others. So once the bar is depleted, the enemy will be incapable of attacking for a short amount of time, and every attack that you land will deal increased damage. Any special attacks will also trigger special cutscenes instead of the regular animation, and these happen to look incredibly good. You always have one attack that deals the most amount of stun damage, so there is no reason not to spam that attack repeatedly until the stun occurs and then go all out with your more damaging attacks. This is apparently the way to do the most amount of damage in as little time as possible, and it will also prevent the enemy from attacking or moving for a couple of seconds, so there is literally no reason not to do this. Once you realize this, Every fight in the game is reduced to repeating your stun attack while waiting for the enemy to do one of their unstoppable attacks, dodging or blocking that attack, and then repeating your stun attack until you can go all out on a essentially defenseless enemy. Oh, and I forgot to mention that when an enemy does one of his long geometric shaped style attacks, his stun bar will most likely get restored while you wait for the attack to end, forcing you to start the whole process again. So yeah, it's not great. You can also spam attacks like Goku's Kamehameha to a similar effect. I guarantee that you will find many videos of people doing precisely that online. This is how shallow the combat is in the game. Everything else, every combo, every skill, everything is just smoke and mirrors. It all boils down to trying to attack between all the stuff that the enemy can do that you can't do anything against. That's essentially what the combat system is. And to top it off, I forgot to mention that seemingly every random encounter and most fights in side quests are against multiple enemies, which honestly plays badly in every single Dragon Ball game and means that you're either paying attention to the arrows in the bottom and seeing when they turn red to dodge, or you're getting hit by attacks originating off screen very often. In these fights, the stun tactic doesn't work very well because you are often interrupted, and I don't know, these type of encounters with multiple enemies are often very annoying. Now, you might find some enjoyment out of this type of combat. It's basically a turn-based combat system in real time, since almost every single enemy attack requires you to either dodge or block, making it effectively not your turn right now. But this isn't Dragon Ball combat, so if that's what you're looking for, I would not recommend you get this game. To me, it feels like I've peered behind the curtain and now all the magic is gone. There is no denying that some attacks are flashy, and sending people flying through the mountains not only looks good, but also feels good. Some of the attacks in the game look amazing, and the moments where you get to do a string of attacks for long are great, but they are always cut short by the interruptions. That's where the power fantasy stops, because every single enemy in the game will always be more powerful than you. Even if you can beat them with a few punches, their attacks will always trump yours, and there is nothing that you can do about it. They always have the upper hand, and with that, getting stronger lacks any meaning. To me, this breaks the system and any appeal that it has completely. I can understand some people liking it or being okay with it, but I'm not. I think any redeeming qualities that this game has come from it being a Dragon Ball game, and that means that the basic story, the characters, and the design of the world and some parts of the fights are amazing and look really good. But the core game that's on display here, the combat, the side activities, the orb collecting, the crafting, are the definition of mediocre. This is a 5 out of 10 game or a 6 out of 10 game. I honestly think that everyone out there giving this an 8 out of 10 lacks imagination. I've said on my video on Jedi Outcast that it got a free pass because it's a Star Wars game. This gets a free pass because it's Dragon Ball. Everything in the game could be much better than it is. It's not broken, it works, it looks nice, some stuff is fun, but everything could be much better. If you have nothing else to play and you're a big fan of the series, then maybe give this a try, but wait for a sale. This isn't worth $60. If you're buying this because of the combat, then my advice is don't. This can feel like Dragon Ball at times, but it isn't, and there are games that have a better combat system out there already. This is a very complete Dragon Ball experience. It has a lot of stuff and a lot of love put into it to represent the Dragon Ball world accurately. But unfortunately, as I said, most of it is mediocre. There are some flashes of genius, some parts that look really good, and to some people that might be enough to, compensate for everything else, but to me it isn't. Okay, that will be all for now. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and please remember to subscribe and check out the other videos on the channel if you did. I hope to catch you on the next one.